Welcome everyone to the City Services Committee meeting, 26th March 2025. First up on the agenda as apologies. We have three people waiting. We are Guthrie, Councillor Carson, Councillor Holderness. I'll move that they be accepted and leave of absence. Can I call a seconder? Councillor Kerry, all in favour? Aye. Kerry. I've also got Councillor Swales here as well. I'll move that she be given speaking rights, no voting rights. Can I have a second to Councillor Hammond? All in favour? Aye. Yes. Second on the agenda is declarations of interest. If members wish to clear a conflict of interest, today's agenda, just talk to the governance advisor if that's the case. Move to item 3, public forum. We don't have anyone at public forum. The first up is item 4, proposed parking change to H2O car park, Brown Street, and installation of pedestrian islands at 836 Fergusson Drive. I'll just know if there's any update at all, or we'll go straight to questions. Okay.
No update on that. Through Mr. Chair, just the updated map that got circulated, so hopefully everyone's got a copy of that. There's just some tweaks on it following some good feedback.
Yeah. Anyone's read the update? Okay, cool. I'll open up to Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. Just so I'm clear, the update is that the row closest to the bottom of car parks will remain unrestricted. That's the main change.
Good. Through Chair and we've got the infrastructure manager here as well, who can come up and help with the answers. But we just took away a bit of the clutter as well and just added some of the clarified between coach and bus stop, and looked at that existing unrestricted car parking down the bottom to remain as one of the changes. Yes.
Did we consult with Whirinaki on this?
These changes?
Yes. Come up to the table, Chair, and help answer some of the questions.
That's great. I've already got an answer. Thank you. I've just had a few people contacted me about this who have bowling tournaments at Whirinaki as well as dance tournaments, which tend to go on for all day and for quite. They seem like frequent. The bowlers who said it was twice a month, so fortnightly. I'm just not sure if that's enough quantity of car parks to meet the demand, because they're an all-day event, so moving your car every 3 hours seems pointless, really, and just is a bit of a hassle. And these guys are existing users of the facility, and I just question that, since obviously anyone else using the event those facilities can take up those parks at any time, doesn't guarantee that there's always going to be car parks around that will be unrestricted, so those guys might actually suffer out of this. So there's some feedback on that.
I understand. Understand previously there was 120s in place, so it's going up to 180s plus. You've got additional unrestricted on there and unrestricted out on the site or out along the stretch.
You've also got the car parks over the other side of the road.
Yes. Yeah, so the new car park built on Civic Square with the power EV stations, 70 spaces. All unrestricted, no time bands on this.
Any other questions? I've just got a question itself, just with the bus stop. So what's the difference between a bus stop and a coach stop?
The bus stop is for the purposes of cyclic bus service run by Met Connect. The coach stop is for school coaches, drop off, pick up. Driver must stay with the bus and move off once drop off's completed. So it's in compliance with the TCD manual.
So the coach stop actually, when they stop, they stay there for a longer period? No. So it's just a bus stop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar to, but it's just one's for the public paid route and for school drop-offs. So it used to be within the grounds, out in front of the building, used to be a coach stop. It's just the sweat paths don't work, so that's moving out into
Councillor Aldrin.
So on page 4, I've got 2 questions. The first is, as the pool is no longer going to have a cafeteria, is there space in the car park where food trucks or coffee carts would be able to perhaps hire a space, or, for events, and like we have big school tournaments with the swimming and a lot of parents there to watch. So I just wondered if that's an option.
Mr. Chair, so Royce is here and might be able to answer that, but I also, and depending on his answer, of course, I mean, there's a process for providing for those in terms of events and things, so they can apply to council and we can designate places for these things to go across the board, but I'm not sure Royce might be able to add some more as the pool.
Through your chair, we have 2 spaces set up to be able to take vending carts in the future for events, or if we want to have one there on the weekend, or even maybe something ongoing that's all set up with electricity and everything. So it's very possible.
But just to add, Chair, that they're away from the parking spaces, they're against the building.
That's good. Is there a charge to park there? So are they actually hired spaces?
Through your Chair, that they are spaces that are available for food trucks, coffee trucks, ice cream trucks, etc. The process, etc., and how and when they might be used has yet to be determined.
Thank you.
No, I've got to wait.
My other question was whether disability groups have been consulted on the disability parking spaces. Was there any major change to that area?
So through the chair, previously 3 parking bed defined designated disabled spaces. Now we're lifting it up to 5 through consultation with the swimming pool and Fergusson.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Hammond.
Was there any reasoning why it wasn't just a Monday to Friday? Because I can already see a problem, say, with Bookfest that's coming up in a couple of months. That's going to, everybody would be wanting their car parks there all day.
I need to come, sorry, through the chair, I need to come back on that one. My understanding is no, it wasn't considered at the time, but it's something we can certainly look at in future.
Sorry, through the chair. Yeah.
That'll come up with special beds, so.
Yeah, through the chair, I think that, I mean, enforcement of parking in this particular area, particularly for the first month or so, is going to be educational and as you said, and hit me with the rise if I'm wrong, but it will be educational as we move to how the site's going to develop and how pedestrians and traffic's going to flow in and out of the site, because it'll be really exciting for the first couple of weeks and there'll be lots of people coming and going. And then if events are on, there's processes for coming and having conversations with council about those events, about working with us around parking and enforcement and all those sorts of things. Are really open for that. Just making sure that we can have an opportunity to engage and talk about where things can go and how we can work with those sorts of things moving forward. It's something we do anyway.
Councillor.
Through you, Chair, will the pavers in the car park outside Whirinaki and the pool be water blasted? I noticed there's a lot of construction dust and I was just imagining a whole lot of feet travelling that dust inside to the new pristine pool.
Through Mr. Chair, I would presume that that entire site will get a good clean and a good scrub up before. I mean, Dale did see just a contractor over here with a little sweeper the other day that looks woefully inadequate, but they were starting to do it, starting to clean.
Okay.
I imagine it would be.
Other questions? Councillor Swales.
Thank you. I just have a question with regard, well, I have a couple of questions with regard to the proposed coach stop. And now that I've had an explanation and the existing bus stop, is is there any reason why we can't flip those, particularly knowing that the coaches that are probably going to be coming are going to be our junior schools? It would be closer for them to be to the entranceway rather than having a regular bus stop. And I'm just wondering the frequency of the Metlink bus that comes along there. Or have you put the Metlink bus there because of the infrequency of the buses coming, the coaches coming, and its closeness to the roundabout? What's the rationale of why you put it the way you have?
Through the chair, the Met Service bus stop already existed in that location and the coach stop was added behind it.
But we could flip it.
I don't see why not. We can look at it.
Through the chair, we did think quite long and hard about your suggestion, and scheduled service I think is hourly. So when the coach comes to drop the children off to the pool, it could be there for a little longer than just a quick scheduled stop. So yeah, you could flip it. We have consulted with Greater Wellington on the actual reinstatement of their stop, because it's been our mission for a year or two, with the H2O works, and they asked us to reinstate it, and that seemed to be a good idea in terms of roading infrastructure, and people will come to H2O and get on and off the bus as well. Because it's a scheduled service, it'll be more regular than the coach stop. That might only come in, once or twice a week. I'm not sure exactly how often that might be. Of course, might know the answer to that, but so yeah, we're just more or less left it as it is. There's scheduled service where it is, and just putting the coach stop in behind.
Thank you, Charles. So really, there's nothing stopping the coach stopping on the bus stop. If they're just letting people alight and then moving off, they can't stay there, right? Or is there something stopping them from doing that?
The
They're not
signs
going to
would
get payment.
indicate no parking except for buses,
Okay.
and the coach stop will have a no parking symbol except for coaches. So we'll designate those two stops quite clearly. Now, whether the
With an explanation, Charles? Sorry.
But to change the two over, it would come out of monetary cost, so an extra monetary cost. Instead of just putting one in, you've already got one already, you're putting another one in, you change them over, you're actually shifting one over there and putting new one. It must come at an extra cost.
yes, through the chair, well, currently, John Price, the infrastructure manager, is actually completing that footpath through there to make it nice and tidy for the 7th of April. And we're putting in sockets in the ground. I guess the sign could, in the socket closest to us could be, coach stop, and the other one could be scheduled service. So there's not a lot of change in terms of cost, probably very little, almost zero.
Okay.
I haven't forget. So another question with regard to parking and to follow on what my colleague Councillor Bentley said with regard to the uses of them. How many car parks are available opposite Whirinaki at that car park that we've got in our empty space? How many car parks are there?
70 in total, approximately, with 4 with EV chargers.
Okay. So 66. Yeah, okay, thereabouts. All right. And the ones that are here, marked here, and then the unreserved ones. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Other questions? Right. We have the recommendations in front of us. I'll move that the report be accepted. That's on A. I'll second Councillor Bentley, all in favour? Aye. And then we have recommendations B through to E. We have a seconder.
So just a question. Do we have to adjust any of them given the material changes here?
On the, on the drawing, I think the drawing was just clarifying my understanding, and I'll just look to the back, it was just moving some of the noise, not really adjusting anything.
So Chair, no information have changed,
Yeah.
no technical we should change it.
Right, can we have a seconder? Councillor Bentley. That's recommendations B to E. All in favour?
B to E.
B to E.
We put in all of the various Bs.
Yeah.
All in favour?
Aye.
Passed. Thank you. And I think remembering that after the first 3 or 4 weeks, you know, on theory it looks really good on paper, but in practice, you know, until people get used to it, and I'm sure the officers will be able to pick out their models, and normally that pops up regularly, and then they've got the ability to adjust it over the next 3 or 4 weeks. So I think personally, we've got pretty close to what we want.
So if we're having a discussion now after you've had the vote, surely if there are going to be some major changes, they would have to bring that back to a council. We haven't given them in any of the recommendations the ability to make those changes, Chair. But what?
It comes to full council on the.
That's okay. Just, you didn't say that. I'm just checking. Yep. Thank you.
Right, moving along, item 5. Group Manager's Report, Community Services. Do you have any updates on the director?
Just through your chair, the managers for each of these areas, community partnerships, the libraries, all the other managers are here. And could I ask that we potentially work through paper by paper, and then rather than the managers getting up and down for each of the questions, and we could, if that's accepted with the chair and the committee, we could work through community partnerships, etc., and each of the managers come forward, and I can just sit back and relax.
Outsourcing.
That's where you come back from holiday.
That's a good idea. Okay, so I'm wondering why we're in such a bustling attendance today.
Start off community partnerships then. Have you any questions from the councillors in that section at all?
Yeah, just through you, Chair, it's on paragraph 12, rough sleepers. It's just about like what does engagement look like, just in terms of more education on those 3 to 4 rough sleepers where it's persistent and ongoing. Is there an unwillingness to look at shelter as like we can't do anything?
Through the chair, homelessness is a really complex issue, as I'm sure you were kind of aware of. And people have a whole variety of reasons, and some people, a lot of shelter that is offered for people in these positions is group, living within a group kind of situation, like a boarding house, and that is sometimes difficult for people to go into that kind of situation. So it's kind of one of the barriers. Some people just report to us that they like to sleep in the park. You know, that's what they like to do. So preference. So yeah, it's a really complex issue, as I'm sure.
Through you, Chair. Also on rough sleepers, I also wanted to ask how effective the government agencies are in dealing with that, and what is locally available in Upper Hutt.
Through your chair, again, very complex situation. Upper Hutt is not deemed as an area of high traffic for rough sleepers, and so engagement is a little bit harder for us to get. Sally, who is a community partnerships advisor, has been able to make some really good traction, and we've had some very good meetings where we have regular engagement with MSD, with HUD, we meet on housing and urban development regularly, and then with the local transition providers and also with clean water. But there is that difficulty that the group is small, so the priority and the resources are just a little bit harder to reach here into our heart.
Councillor.
Just in terms of numbers as well, so with the cost of living like that, tracking it's hard to account. Is it increasing homelessness or rough sleeping, or is it kind of the same? What's the?
Through each year, we engaged just today actually with the community policing team in Fergusson, because they often give a very good gauge of the number of rough sleepers in the community. And we feel it is kind of stable. Perhaps what is happening is there are your people who perhaps are a little bit more persistent in their rough sleeping, and there are some people who are finding it hard to secure accommodation temporarily. So they might, I know a family, we recently worked with the Women's Centre to house.
Councillor Swales.
I have 3 questions, if that's okay. Hi, so Jane, with regard to Paras 3 and 4, engaging with young people, particularly women and girls, what was the sample size of that and the age of that particular group?
Through your chair, that was done it started when it was the
2023,
team. And the sample size, just hoping that Mike might be able to help.
Sorry, you're back off holiday now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, Chair.
I can come back to you.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the sample size was and the age group of the people that were involved.
I can answer the age group. The age group were college age students.
So we weren't looking at, through you, Chair, we weren't looking at, you know, the intermediate age, you know, just under
Yes,
the.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
38,000 people.
Sorry.
1,000 people.
Wow, that's huge
On the link.
on the link.
Oh,
But that wasn't it.
through your chair, that's the
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking more of local.
How many?
Yeah. Yeah, so number 6, I just want to congratulate the team on actually getting someone else to take over the bicycle repair. I think that's really great considering that we lost Fix It Cafe, and wonderful to see that 13 bikes were given to the Trentham Primary School. So I just wanted to give a rose there. Then I just want to go to the welcoming communities, which is para 13. And the reason why I wanted to go there is I know that when we appointed, and we're very lucky with the person that we've appointed to that position, I was under the impression that there were a couple of stages in the welcoming committee, you know, stage 1, and we'd elevated ourselves to stage 2. So all of the stakeholder relationships and things that has been going on in this, is that part of, I thought the brief under stage 2 was a little bit different from this, or is it because we've got a new person in that role that they're making these connections?
Through your chair, accreditation at level 1 was achieved.
Yeah.
Earlier. This is part of stage 2. Yes, is the stock take. Yes,
So,
and then there's another few other key milestones to work through to get to
okay.
accreditation at stage 2.
And so we will get those KPIs as they're achieved and attained coming back to this committee?
Yes, we will report on that as it works our way through. The stock take is almost all of the interviewing is finished, so we're just starting to formulate that report now.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane.
That's right.
Yeah, questions for Jane? Right, we'll move along to I'll just pick one off here on the library, just on 21. Key performance indicators, just with the mobile libraries down 30%. Is there a reason why that is the case?
Yeah, through you, Chair, I can answer that. We have, through sickness and staff vacancies in the outreach team, been quite not being able to go to all of the schools, rest homes, etc., that we have done in the past. We're now addressing that with appointments that are being made to that team.
No questions?
Are we still on library or?
That's the library. Any more on the library? No? Okay, we'll move along to recreation services. I'll just ask the first one, which is probably the one on H2O on just with the new pool and with the media about the cryptosporidium outbreak in the other pools.
Oh, yeah.
We got these measures or to counteract that if it pops up here, or are we just wait till
Through
it
you,
is?
Chair, cryptosporidium's been around for a while. It's not the first outbreak, or nor will it be the last one. So we have public health information which we use to create our policies. So we have policies around all our if we have a fecal in the pool, so obviously it comes from fecal or vomit. It's an ingested bug that people can pick up and then pass on. So we have closure times relating to that, isolation of areas, filtration times, and chemical treatment. So it's been around for a while. So the policies all behind it are all robust and are signed off and are common practice across all councils and facilities.
Because we have the UV part of it, does that help with bacteria killing bacteria?
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, it definitely does help. To have any disinfectant is necessary. So chlorine will take maybe 30 odd minutes to try and kill off something like that, where UV is a lot faster. The problem is the water has to travel through the UV system to be treated. So if something happens around, say, this circle of people, the probability of it being ingested by someone in the circle is where the problem usually comes from, and then the water will close the pool, it'll be treated, and then it's fine for people to get back in it. It's just a time factor to treat it, that's the main problem.
Does it help when we've got different sections sectioned off? Does that have a positive as opposed to one big pool you've got?
Yeah, definitely. If you have an episode which is either a vomit or fecal, you must close the water area. So in the past, unfortunately, because there's a little river joining the main pool and the leisure pool, we had to shut, or we should shut, and we did shut both of those bodies of water for the period of time. When now we've isolated those two pools, so each pool is on a different filtration system. So if you have an incident in the toddler's pool, you will shut that to public and do the time that we have to do, or dump it depending on what's happened, but you would still be able to swim in the other bodies of water. You just have to manage the people moving from one area to another to make sure the person who didn't do something there goes and jumps in that pool and does it there, basically.
Any questions at all on recreation? Nice.
Yep, I have one from a member of the public, mainly myself. When is hydroaerobics going to start?
Through your chair, the dry hydro's been running obviously while we've been closed, and we have run some at Fulton's in the evening, but for the older generation, that class has been running as well, but the full classes will come back on board when we start on the 7th of April.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I have a question on the floorball league, and the question that I have is, after the LTP or in the LTP, we said that there was some funding restrictions, and we had a number of parents come and talk to us about their concerns with regard to our funding on floorball. Is there anything, since we've agreed, that has anything come, how is it going?
Okay, once again, through your chair, floorball is a very successful league in Upper Hutt. It's paid for by the people using it, and the money returns pays for it and provides a little margin for ongoing maintenance and rental bookings and stuff like that. So it's going well at the moment, and there is no negatives to it that I see.
Okay, so there was a concern that we were taking a step back, as in we were as a council were taking a step back and handing it over to them to organise. So that's really where my point was coming from.
Yeah, I see. We have done that with many other parts of what Activation done. This area, we still maintain a council-led approach on it. We have discussions with the floorball club around them taking over the ownership, but they don't have the infrastructure at the moment. If we were to pull out now, I'm not sure what would actually happen to it as a leak.
Through you, Jeff, if I can quickly add there,
Yes.
is when we were talking about the reduction in services of activation, floorball was mentioned as a
Yes.
possibility only. With the
Okay,
restructure, that we have dry programs sitting in recreation services. And we are able to offer floorball, and as indicated by Royce, it's cost neutral. Or if anything, a little bit beneficial to council making a little bit of money from it. So we're going to continue to do that under the dry part of recreation services.
thank you. That's clarity.
Any other questions on recreation? No? Okay, we'll move on to open space facilities. I'll start the first one off. Just under park bookings, the floodlights at Mainstone Park, undergoing realignment. Are they still under the warranty, or are we paying for that?
Yeah, the lights, yeah, they basically are under warranty. However, we're replacing, as part of the design, there were a couple of dark areas that were missed in the project design. Council will be paying for those lights. Part of the problem was the crossbars on the lights. They were put up incorrectly, but too short. So the lights that were up there couldn't be angled to cover all the dark spots. So the contractors have replaced with longer cross arms. They're actually going up right at this moment. We're going to be covering the cost of 2 or 3 lights, probably about $5,000 or $6,000. But they'll be covering the rest of the work.
Any other questions? Councillor Ultra.
Through you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about the garden plot. So it's on page 20.47, the summer bedding plants being removed. What I'm wondering is, because the majority of those are annuals,
Correct.
is there any plans to use perennials rather, so they last for 2 years or more, because they'll keep seeding and flowering?
Yeah, through the chair. No, they're annual beds. They're designed that way for the bright colours. The second year round, they don't flower as well. Then you need the winter display as well. So there's more of a 6-month instant colour display, and then they're gone. Yeah. Permanent planting would just be like a garden, wouldn't it? Is that what you're referring to, or?
Yeah, so I was meaning just plants that last longer and don't need changing out as often.
Yeah, no, through the chair, no, we haven't considered that for the bedding. Either have bedding or you don't.
That's okay.
What happens to those plants once they get pulled out? Those get composted?
Probably get composted. The contractors generally refer them to contractors because they don't get people through go and remove them. Just the health and safety issue basically. But they do it through the contractor when they're pulling them out. A lot of people grab them.
Any other questions?
I have a few. So with regard to the lights, right, we transferred our Better Off funding of $1 million for the lights to be put in place because that was how we would spend. So when we did that, obviously we didn't scope out the work properly. That's why we have to put these new lights in, right? Is that how it's happened?
No, I think that it was scoped out properly. To be brutally honest, I think the project management is probably a little bit remiss. I'm not trying to point the finger in there.
No, but
yeah, but what was supposed to be implemented wasn't actually done. And yeah, it's really down to the project management.
okay. So the extra lights that you're putting in there then are coming out of capital, or are they already in a project fund there? Because I thought that was closed off, that project.
Yes, it is. It probably have to come out of our maintenance budget. Yeah, to cover it internally.
Okay. I have other questions, if that's all right.
Section.
Yeah, we're all for our lovely. Okay, so I want to now go to paragraph. So we talk about these iPads and the GIS things in paragraph 41. So obviously this is new technology that we've got, and we're going to be set up to capture all of our assets and the condition of them. So this is just for our play area, or is it a bigger scope than that? What does it capture in our assets?
Covers all our assets, all the parks assets.
Just the parks?
Well, that's what we're dealing with, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I'm not sure whether it can be, with the roading or not, maybe. But it, you know, it's certainly, yeah, covering not just our playground, it's all the amenities, picnic tables, areas, features, roads.
Right, okay. Right. And we see that that will be finished in a very short period of time. It won't take us long to do that.
No, it's going to take quite some time. And we're going to start, hopefully going to finish it by April, but there's a lot of else got to go into it. But there's a commitment to it. It's pretty important.
When my next question is now moving on to the resurfacing of that's happening at our parks. So at a previous City Services Committee meeting, we talked about that once those services were done, that there was a higher requirement from rugby with regards to making sure that the field comes up to their requirement. So obviously that's going to be scoped in before anyone plays on it, or because football don't need that requirement, they'll be able to play on it straight away.
That's the theory. They can, when it's finished, obviously, which hopefully will be this weekend.
Okay.
That they could play, but rugby, yeah, it's not certified for rugby. It's just a matter of, yeah, it's bad timing, as I mentioned before. It's just bad timing to get the assessor out. I think they do not only that one, but they do all the regional parks all the regional ones as well at the same time. Yeah, so the soccer can certainly, I think they're trying to be keen to get it on Saturday.
Right, to play it straight away. All right, and the only other one was that removal of the macrocarpa tree, which was at the Kiwi Holiday Park on page 48. I recall that a number of my colleagues around the table have always said that when we actually chop anything down, is there the opportunity for the public to come and use that, knowing that we're coming into winter months? Was that ever a consideration when this tree was taken down?
Not for the public, but certainly the owner of the holiday park.
Okay.
There's issues with people turning up the chainsaw on the parks, so you can obviously encourage that. Some of the fruit trees are removed, the wood's left on the side of the street. Okay. I'll guarantee it's gone within a couple of hours.
So we do that.
Yeah. Not all the time, but depending on the size.
Yeah. Thank you, Brett.
Any other questions for Brett? Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Number 40. No, sorry, number 42. Timberley, you've already started on that to put the rope down. What's actually going up there?
Not 100% sure, just a replacement, I think. Or part thereof. Haven't actually got the full detail off the top of my head.
My granddaughter will be happy when it's back.
The what, sorry?
My granddaughter will be happy when it's back.
Excellent.
I've got to ask before.
Any questions for Brett? Other questions? Thank you, Brett. Move along to Taranaki.
So through you, Chair, I have a question on page 21, which isn't Whirinaki. It's actually on Lane Street Studios. It's on Lane Street Studios, Blue Mountains Campus and NZCIS rates for emission milestones. And so I'm wondering if we're going to have an opportunity to meet with them before any decisions or renewals are made.
Through you, Chair, you've missed the economic development and Stu's here
Yeah.
to be able to answer any of those questions.
Sorry.
Thank you. Just to answer that question, we've got a framework, a reporting framework in place for each of the rates remissions. And we're expecting a report to come from each of the applicant, the people that are eligible, the organisations that are eligible, those three that are mentioned there. And so that's what we're expecting in. We'll assess those. We're not planning on meeting them unless there's any issues with them meeting the requirements that we have in the templated agreements. And in that case, we would meet with them and yeah.
Councillor Swales.
Thank you. Stu, I've got a couple of questions for you. So with regards to the rates remission, obviously, which committee would that report come back to? Them meeting their KPIs?
In the past, we've reported through this committee, but it goes to council. So yeah.
So to this committee, whereas, you know, it's got a lot to do with finances. I would have thought it would have gone with finance and performance committee.
Through you, Chair, that's something that we can potentially work out internally around.
Right.
What's the appropriate committee?
I think it's really important that it comes back to finance and performance because everyone is on that committee and there are probably some questions that would be raised. Because one of the things that I would like to see is how much longer is the rates remission offered to the various businesses. I know that there is one that if it meets its KPIs or exceeds the parameters of what it was given, it no longer gets the rates remission. But then there's another one that actually could be ongoing. So it would just be nice to know where we fall within the parameters of the rates remissions.
Yeah, they've all got fixed end dates and those for eligibility. And once those are finished, any remission agreement they're not eligible to apply beyond that time. So that will be those will be in the report. Yeah.
Okay. It's just that I thought that one of them, when it exceeded or became quite profitable, then it stopped. In my recollection, is that not correct? I can recall that it actually was an outcome of a meeting at the library. So has that changed?
No, there's it's a whichever comes first, the end of the agreement or the break even.
Okay, just double checking that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Words are important. Mike. Oh, sorry. No, I'm a guest here. So if you have some, yeah.
That's Kerry.
Well, are you finishing?
Yeah. No, I've got others, but you go.
Thanks, through you, Chair. I guess it's just looking at the figures in general, and I'm not. Finance is not my strongest part of this, but are we starting to see a trend? Like if we're looking at generally spending is really just on the essentials across the city. You're not getting people in here. People are spending close to home, which means they're probably not travelling. And the only thing shoring up any sort of spending change is that international piece. What's the long term with more shops empty? You know, potentially more job cuts on central government. Do we have sort of more forecast type information?
Through Chair, and we don't have any more forecast information than what's generally out there about the economy. In terms of our variance from the forecast, the economic forecast has been that we've been in a decline and we're on the up. Upper Hutt has lagged. We lagged in terms of decline, and now when other areas are maybe starting to improve, we're taking a bit longer to move into that up cycle. So that's to date, that's where we have performed. That's how we have performed against the projections that are there. And as those figures have been confirmed, where we've sat against kind of the economic cycle. Yeah. So
why is that? Why do we follow a trend?
Probably it's hard to identify causality, but we've come, Upper Hutt did pretty well out of through the COVID times, surviving the COVID times. We were pretty resilient for a number of reasons, and those reasons are pretty clear. People coming to stay more at home, spent more at home, and a lot more of those people have stayed home longer, so for whatever reason, not necessarily going back to work full time in the city, for example. The industries or the sectors that we are very strong in, NZDF and corrections, were essential services, and so there wasn't the hit to income that for those people, and that has a flow-on effect to our local businesses. The growth, a lot of the growth that had been happening in Upper Hutt in terms of spending in Upper Hutt, particularly attracting regional spending into Upper Hutt from non-residents, had come through the hospitality sector. That has dropped off. That's a sector that's doing it really tough at the moment, and so the gains that we had seen there have dissipated, and we don't have any new major new manufacturing coming in to replace those. I guess the one thing that's come into that's reflected in the last year's figures to replace that is in the arts and culture sector. We have had a reasonable jump there. Again, we can't point the finger at one particular cause for that, but we have had a small to medium budget movie that was here for a month or two, you know, during that time, and that's the only kind of recognisable difference from the previous year to the current year. So in general, yeah, it's belt tightening, and as you can see, people are spending closer to where they live, and they're spending proportionally more on essentials.
Sorry, Chair, just two more questions. I guess, is there any metrics we can take around job ads? Because if we're looking at, you know, shops closing, more vacant stores and things like that, and we're just dipped below what level since 2017, people kind of put their money where their mouth is with job ads and what they're doing. Like, is that a metric that we can sort of measure and track? And then the other piece, is there any way of having like a geospatial map view of the vacancies? I'm not trying to make it burdensome in terms of reporting, but if that's possible to sort of see what locations are empty, it's sort of hard to paint a picture of how the city looks or movement when you've just got listed addresses. It might be good to be able to see it. So yeah, tracking job ads, and then possibly a different way of actually visualising these vacancies.
Yeah, all good ideas. Some of them would require bespoke reporting. It's just a matter of looking for the resource that's going to deliver that. In terms of laying out geospatially, I can talk internally to the team here. We do have some internal resource about being able to. We've got the data there. It's just a matter of putting that data onto a map rather than a graph. So potentially we can do that. The job ad data, we would have to go to a different source to get that data specifically, or we'd have to commission it separate from the data that's part of the subscriptions that we have. So there might be some cost involved in gathering that information. Yeah. But we'll try and hunt it out. Yeah.
Well, sorry, I guess it's more for the group. I don't want to create reporting burdens for no need, but is that worth a discussion at some point, possibly?
I think the map side.
Map side.
Yeah, it'd be quite clear exactly where the shops are.
But just other metrics for change, right? If we're just saying we've got more businesses closing or our levels of that, you know, like what else indicates that? Are there other trends? Otherwise, we're just business folds and then or shop closes and we don't know why, or we haven't seen it come up. Yeah.
Yeah, we anecdotally we can anecdotally hear from people why they're closing. They're retiring, but if they haven't been able to sell the business on, and you know, there's got to be some reasons behind that. Sometimes people don't want to talk to us when their business is closing. They're pretty whakamara about that kind of stuff, and and that's their right as well. Sometimes they don't want us to shut up about it either, so yeah, which you know, it's so we can gather that anecdotal data. It's just hard to link it in terms of cause and effect, but we can at least have that, look to get that information presented in some way. Yep.
Thank you.
I have one. Yep. So with regard to our market view information that we pull, which is quite helpful, what do we do with that information other than report here to this committee? Do we share it with anybody?
It's available to businesses if they want it. It's not always in a format that's useful for individual businesses. They tend to want a bit of a deeper dive in their particular area. And most of the bigger businesses have their own subscription to market view data that supplies them with data that's sliced and diced in a way that's useful to them. But all of the data that we gather, we can make available on request to anybody. The market view data we can make available on request. The Infometrics data, our subscription is different for Infometrics, and for Infometrics data, we actually have a link through to the Infometrics data dashboard. That's as part of our subscription. We can offer that link to our public, and that's available on our website. So, yeah.
Okay, so I was just thinking, and I appreciate the bigger businesses have the depth in their pocket to pay for it because it's not a cheap report to get, but I thought that we got as part of our segregated data which would be very helpful for our retailers who are suffering at the moment, where their clientele is coming from, because it would help them with their marketing issues to make sure that those people are aware of what they're doing and their best way to spend their marketing budget, which is quite limited in these times. So do we get that? Where our clientele come from, because you've got all the stats of what
we get with the stats that you see in front of you about origin, customer origin. We get that data. It's only broken. It's not always broken down against all of those categories.
No.
But generally it comes in against those categories. And market view are pretty conservative when it comes to making sure they don't give data that could identify individual businesses. And from that point of view, sometimes they roll up the data into, rather than giving it more specifically, just into city centre or non-city centre, which is as far as we get in terms of dicing it that way.
Yeah, so it's not really where they're spending their money, it's where are they coming from. So are the majority of the people that are spending their money coming from Wairarapa, or are they coming from the other side of the hill, in which case I would invest my money on making sure that I attract people from, Johnsonville or Porirua or places like that, or I would invest my money on people catching the Wairarapa train and getting off at Upper Hutt and spending their money. So it was more that. I don't really particularly want to know where they spend their money, right? Because if I was in a business, then it's up to me to make sure that I attract them to come in through my door. But my other question is around 57, where we've got those graphs, which follows on from Councillor Curie's question. And it is quite disappointing knowing that when we came out of COVID, we were ranked as #1 across all of the matrix that we had. And then to see that, in 2024, we go from, a 5-year performance of 1st to 30th and 1st to 23rd and 5th to 1st. And I understand that it is just a changing of the times and just the industry that we have here, and just the different demographics that we've got. So I would certainly support a map showing us, that information in a more pictorial way. I think it would be really helpful. And I do understand that it's hard to get the job vacancies where they are. So that's just kind of me. Thank you.
Yeah, questions? Councillor Henry?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. 63, the vacancies and the length of vacancies, that that's a very flawed graph, because you know, you wouldn't put a dog into Hazelwoods or Hoppers or Criddles. These are not available to be rented, so, and yet they come up on the empty graph. So we really do have probably closer to 92% rather than the 87%, because you're actually including untenable areas.
Yeah, through Chair, absolutely, they're untenable. What the reason for having this information there is, in this format, is to show the overall state of the city centre. We'd need to drill down into each of the addresses to look at the reasons behind those, why some of those buildings are vacant. But those vacancies are vacant because there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make them tenantable. Absolutely, that's right. But that's how we've always measured the vacancies in the city centre. We've measured it as spaces that are either productive and active and vibrant, which is what our stated goal is for the city centre, to have an active and vibrant city centre, or they're not, or they're detracting from that. And and you're absolutely right in your observation. A lot of them are, when you link them up to the actual addresses and have a look at them, you know, you feel sorry for the rats that you do see inside.
But I think that there are a map or something like that would be good, and then you've got other, you know, public can see actually who's sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you did it any other way, you'd be accused of gerrymandering the numbers to be excluded the untenable ones. So I think the way we report it's fine.
Questions? Thank you. I would have come up. We've got yeah, there. Thanks. Spell cheating.
Oh, take your opinion. Who's that? Who's that up to?
This is Leanne.
Oh, that's, oh, you just skipped to put an end.
Did it skip two?
Oh, no.
It's after.
Oh, no, that's at the end. That's okay.
Any questions there, Dave?
No, after all that, no.
Oh, that's right there. Oh, health.
Thank you. I just want to say that I always enjoy getting your reports, because what you do is you actually respond them and your objectives 1.1, which makes it really easy for us from a governance level to understand which KPIs ones that you're hitting. So I appreciate the format that you give your report, and it gives us a clear picture of how we're tracking against the KPIs, your statement of intent and everything. So congratulations. I think that you and the team, under the circumstances, are doing a really great job. So thank you.
Thank you. And last one, Maidstone Sports Hub. Any questions on point one?
On point 89, I'm just wondering what the time frame of the 936 bookings were. Was that from the time it opened? Or it doesn't actually have a time frame on here that I can see.
Through you, Chair, that was for Q2. So it was Q2 bookings, which was October to December. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's right.
That's cool.
Yeah, what's the plan to get this utilisation up? Because it's pretty dismal at the moment. Be rude, but sorry.
Yeah, no.
But is there an outreach plan to get some new people in the building
Yeah,
to use
definitely.
other times of the week?
There is. So through you, Chair, we have put out a social media campaign for the last month, and we have seen in February to April, our daytime bookings increased by 146%. So we've gone from 25 daytime bookings over a month period up into 67 for April, which is a pretty dramatic change through there. And then our overall bookings have increased 100%. So that's bookings included.
So 130% for what, on quarter?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. And do you ever offer kind of community groups that come and come try it for a first few times, see how you like it and then pay?
We haven't done that yet, but there's always different opportunities that we're looking at, such as.
Because they might just be put off by the cost and don't even know the space, they haven't been there yet, so.
And through you, Chair, if I may add, we're looking to have as many meetings, events, and we're looking to run our holiday program there for that exact reason. You potentially get people into the facility that think it's a sports facility. It has nothing to do with me, but they go there for another reason and then think about what else they could use it for.
So, just one more. Sorry. And how does it work with the catering facilities there? Are they manned just during the weekends when there's kind of games on, or can people request the caterers be there? How does that work?
Through each year, we don't have in-house catering, so it is, if someone is hiring it, it is up to them to provide the services.
Do we partner with any catering firms to?
I have no
In terms
official
of the bar and
partnerships,
stuff,
but
yeah.
when people do request bookings, I've got local caterers who we have worked with regularly, who I kind of steer them towards.
And so in terms of the bar for a Saturday, that's just run by each individual club?
No, that is run through the trust.
That's run through the trust. And so we sell food, but we sell drinks, we don't have food.
No, we do sell food, so we've got the bar open.
We have employees who cook. Thank you.
With the Rico Centre going to changing their lease to the Phoenix, have you had any more inquiries as to from the peripheral ones that were using it?
Through you, Chair, not their regular users, but some of their little offshoots that have been there have moved up towards us a little bit more as well, which has been a little bit of an increase, which is good.
You have questions? No other questions? Right.
Thank you.
Let's see. I'll move that report be please. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Perry, all in favour? Aye. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to item 6. Engagement Strategy of Planning and Services Group Report. Got Content's online, is it?
Yeah, it's online and
Okay, any updates on the report at all, or?
I'm just through the chair. Apologies, I can't be there. I've picked up one of the bugs going around, and I'm best not to be in there sharing it. I've invited Donna, who's joined us at the table, to respond to any questions you might have, but nothing to add from my perspective.
To the floor, Councillor Altry.
So on point 6, there was a meeting held with staff representatives about the loss of local media in Upper Hutt, printed media. I'm just wondering if the Upper Hutt connection, if the council has had any communication with the editor there about whether we could just print a few copies for the library, or just to have at the reception in council for people to have a look at. It's online already, obviously, but I think it's the printed media that is missing.
So through the chair, yes, we do have some conversations with Connect. It is an online, same as our media. And they scrape quite a lot of the information on our websites or social media channels. The issue that we have is not so much that people aren't getting the information online, it's the fact that they're not getting it into their letter boxes, which is what the newspapers did. So even if we had something like we do for the annual planning submissions, we have some of those information booklets at our libraries or at our call centre, at the customer centre. It still involves people coming in to get the information, and that's where the barrier is. Stuff actually, the two representatives that we spoke to were actually quite disappointed that there was no local media here. That's not something that they were supportive of when the decision was made. However, decisions made for economic reasons, not emotional ones. Their suggestion was they would try neighbourly. Now we've tried that. It does have an older demographic, but again, it's still online, so you don't get things. what we are trying to do is, and we're doing it through some of the engagement with the annual plan, but also with community services, is trying to get our information to those networks so that they can share it with their networks. And that I think is going to be the best way that we can. Our alternative is to go back to doing something ourselves, but there is an issue around printing, an issue around cost. And the biggest barrier is actually the cost of distribution. And we found that with even the submission form, the consultation form that we've sent out, the print is not excessive. The distribution costs are where payments are. So to your point, yes, we have conversations. We're looking for any opportunity to be able to get our information out, and we're using as many channels as we can. We'll continue to build that as appropriate.
Can I have a supplementary? Thank you, Chair. How many small media newsletters are there around Upper Hutt? So we're aware of the Upper Hutt connection, and I know there's a Pinehaven Progressive Association newsletter for the local people there, and it's all community run. I just wondered how many of those types of small media, you know, like for community groups and just affecting small areas, are there? If any of those would have any ideas?
Through the chair, I couldn't answer that. I certainly know that our social media person is constantly watching what's happening through all of those sorts of channels. It's something that I'm happy to go back to community services and see if they have any idea. But as I said, we are looking for all those opportunities and we'll continue to drill into those. And if anybody knows any, please send them to us, because the more channels we have, the more opportunity we have to get the message out.
Thank you.
Just on 11, community feedback survey on the Upper Bowling Club consultation period. Will we see that at which council meeting? Will that be policy or council?
Through you, Chair, it's coming to the next policy.
And just on 13, just with 76 Queen Street, I know that mentioned there on Facebook and that they were going to start on the Critters building last week or the week before. Is there any news update on this never-ending sale?
I don't have any information around the demolition, but we only deal with media inquiries that come through. I'm not sure if anybody else from the room has an update around that.
So shoot the message.
Yeah, which Councillor Swales.
Thank you for coming. So with the distribution of our consultation annual plan flyer that has been delivered to the households, so they were all delivered on Monday, or what day?
Through the chair, it's been progressive through this week.
Okay.
I know I got mine yesterday.
Okay. So is there any way that we know when they would have finished? Because my issue with the reason why I'm asking this question is that we had so many people come to us through the LTP saying that they never got that flyer. So when do we think that the distribution into our community will finish with this annual plan?
So the update that I had from the team today was that the distributor had almost completed the run. So I would expect by tomorrow they should have all been distributed.
So could we then put a post on our website to say, if you haven't received one, please contact us? Because I think that if we are proactive in that space, then it means that we're actually forethinking that maybe possibly they may not get it, and therefore, you know, from our perspective, we think they've all been delivered into the community, but if they haven't, that would be just a really good for us to do.
We can definitely do that. Interestingly, the customer centre started to get queries today, and people hadn't actually read the flyer. They were looking for the hard copy document, which we've said will be available in early April. So there is already interest, and people are obviously getting the flyer in their letterbox, but certainly we can put something on the website and on social media to say, if you haven't got it, please contact us.
So we're a week behind with our hard copy that we're printing.
The hard copy takes a lot longer to print, and it's only just been finalised, so it is at the printers.
Okay, and how many are we printing?
We're only printing 1,000.
Wow.
And that's due to the number that were left over from the long-term plan. We do have the ability to print more if necessary.
So how many people then picked up the hard copies from the LTP? Because if you're saying it's from the number that was left over.
So my understanding is there was about 3,000 printed last year for the LTP, and we disposed of over 2,000.
So we're saying so if they picked up
for an LTP, there was only about 1,000 picked up for an annual plan. We're not expecting even as many as that. However, we can print more.
Well, I was just thinking, you know, we've got some serious things, particularly about local water done well. I would have thought that that would have been enough for us to think that possibly, you know, a similar number might have been what needed to be going out to the community.
So the amount that we're printing is the same amount that was picked up from.
So 2,000 we are.
And also most people are going online to make the submissions and to read the information. And of course, we drive people to that from a sustainability point of view.
And when they go online, if there are 4 people in the house of a voting age, that it doesn't recognise a IP and then say the other 3 can't participate?
No.
It doesn't do that?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
If you had an influx of wanting them, how long does it take to print off a few more?
Well, it would depend, because we do have an in-house facility where we can print off some as well. So if it was a smaller number that is coming through, we could do that very quickly in-house. If we suddenly got a huge influx, then it's already set up at the printer, so it's easy enough to just go. The setup's already done. So I would doubt that we would be printing another 1,000.
That's a good.
Thank you. About a year ago, or I can't remember when it was now, about like 1 or 2 years ago, before the time. We used to, before each council meeting and committee meeting, put up a summary of the agenda. And it got really good. It was really good to share out to the community so they didn't have to go digging on our website to find out what's going on. It was a good, quick way of telling people what was on each agenda, and they could have then if they were interested, they could look into it. And that's been stopped. I'm just wondering why it was stopped, and could we start it up again?
Through the chair, I have no idea why it was stopped. That's certainly something I can.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And just through the chair, we put up a summary of what takes place at the meetings, but as Donna said, I think it was before our time as to the decision to stop it. The agenda is usually, pretty clear. The front page of the agenda, I thought, in terms of, a synopsis of what each paper is about, but we can certainly look into that.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, it was good to give people a heads up before the meeting, so then they could know if they wanted to come along and speak to it or dig a bit more about what was going on. And yeah, the front page of the agenda does give a good synopsis sometimes, but it's in council language, whereas this was in plain English. It was quite friendly to read.
What I'd like to do is there's a couple. So we know that we've got a shortage of a lot of our community groups having access to funding and things like that. Having heard that the cost of distribution is quite prohibitive for us, or a cost that's quite expensive, have we as a council looked at any of our community groups that are looking to fundraise to give them a subdivision to do any distribution? I'm just putting it on the table. Is it been something that we have thought about? Knowing that funds out there has dried up, and I know that there have been a number of teams that have, delivered our telephone books when we had telephone books and things like that, and did it really, really well and covered. So I just want to put that on the table as something to think about that we could do. Yeah. I'll hold my other question.
I just
Happy to move.
I'll have to move that. Got seconded? Yeah. Councillor Ultram, all in favour?
Aye.
Last. We shall move to our last one, operations group report. Ask Director, any updates at all?
Through Mr Chair, so we'll just take the report as read, happy to answer any questions, and much like the Group Manager Community Services, the managers are here to help, and if you want to go through sequentially, we can work in the same sort of fashion.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Oh, sorry. Are we going to go through an order? So my one's not, is on one of the dashboards.
I'll start.
Sorry, let us go through. Let us go through and I'll come tomorrow.
Yeah. Compliance. Sorry. Start with land transport, questions on land transport. Councillor Swales.
No, Councillor Ultram's got one.
Councillor Ultram.
My question is actually on the Akatarawa Cemetery development, which is before land transport. Point 8, around vegetation clearing at the cemetery. I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity to salvage any of the young saplings in the understory for groups like Forest and Bird or any other interested groups that would want to pop them up and plant them out. I just think that it's a terrible waste. Obviously some big trees must go, but there must be a lot in the understory that could be salvaged.
So through Mr Chair, I can raise that with the project manager and come back.
Right, thank you.
You have a question on land transport? No?
On land transport, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you. Under 9, we're focusing on the safety aspect around speed limits around schools. When we submitted to Wakakotahi, did we actually extend that brief to other safety issues that we have around the city?
Through the chair, we've focused our efforts on 4 projects: school signs, Blue Mountain bus stop, the Mogandi, ask for the money, pedestrianised walking routes following the pool opening, and 4th one's just disappeared out.
Pedestrian crossings?
Yeah, pedestrian crossings with the pool opening, to understand the walking routes and museums.
Thank you very much. I don't have any more questions.
On road safety again, Gloucester Street, I have recently heard of another near miss. I'm just wondering if that area around, so it's the Pensy and Gloucester heading around Silverstream School perimeter. That area has a lot of speeding vehicles and people are, talking about it. I just wonder if that area is still going to be on the radar.
So through the chair, new Tupper Hut regions, so kind of vague on the location. If we receive customer or school complaints about speeding, we can take it up with the policing department, have monitoring done on speeding issues, and subsequently look at speed control measures and securing funding for that matter.
Thank you.
Can I add to that conversation, because I was part of it with regard to a number of parents had come to us earlier, and it was talking about making, what was the name of that street? Terminus Street.
Yeah.
Actually doing something there, making it easy for the children to actually go through Terminus Street and looking at either putting speed humps there or something, because a number of the parents around that area had an issue with the increased use of people coming from Wallaceville using that as a way to get out at Silverstream. So I know that a lot of work has been done around that, and that there were probably 3 times that you went out, and I've got that information, but maybe it needs to be updated. And if we have the opportunity to have that conversation, I know a lot of the parents from Silverstream who live in that area would be very open to having that conversation.
Councillor
Yeah, through the chair, I'll add to that. I lived on 200 Street, but it's two left turns is what you get, so you get that rat run through, and it's the shortcut because it's the shortest way without without going uphill for all the kids that walk from as far as probably NZCIS through to Silverstream Primary. So that was the biggest concern, and ultimately, I think the church were strong against anything on that road, and that's probably why it fell over. But yeah, something to look at. Happy to talk offline with and get that back on.
Through the chair, I appreciate the insights new to the region and stuff. So I'm always keen to look at reprioritising works within the limited funds.
Yeah, I live very close to the cemetery as well, and I put my 5 cents worth in, but it definitely is a rat run when River Road or Fergusson Drive is really congested with an accident. That they definitely use it to on Square up Pepsi and try to run quickly and get back onto Fergie Drive. So increase in traffic. And I just was asking earlier about the renewal program with Pepsi Street because I've done a lot of patch-up jobs on there, and I understand that they're going to be resealing that next year, from what I've been told.
Through the chair, yes, current programme is for that to be preparing it ready to seal as early as possible next financial year.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Ward Street, I'm happy to see that signs are up and that's going to be resealed. How far up? Is it going to go right up to Alexander Road or just up to the railway lines? It's
through the chair, finishes tonight. It goes from the roundabout, a little bit either side of the roundabout, across the railway line, and I think it's about 400 or 500 metres beyond it.
great. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I appreciate it.
So we're from what, Fergusson Drive roundabout?
No, the Alexander.
Okay.
Oh, actually, does it go down to Fergusson? It doesn't actually get to Fergusson.
Not all the way to Fergusson.
Oh, okay.
Patches all the
Benefits.
Yeah. It was to operate within the limited funds we got within the NZT.
Right, any more questions on transport? No, right, thank you. We'll go to water services. Councillor Aldrin.
Through you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about whether there's any updates to the review of costs with Wellington Water, especially with the recent reports. Is there any further information you can give us to what's in this brief outline?
So through you, Mr. Chair, so this is more an operationally focused reports and nothing specific on the sort of governance and the direction that that's taking. From our perspective, as we've outlined there, in terms of that wastewater disposal and renewal, we are working with Wellington Water to look at Logan Street project that's happening and doing a parallel cost estimate, and we'll just see how that progresses in terms of what we do from that perspective. So at a granular level, certainly we're making sure that the next cabs off the rank are offering us value and our community value, but can't comment on what's happening in the board committee realm.
Chair.
Thank you.
Councillor Bentley.
The chair and CEO of Wellington Water are coming to meet with each council individually to discuss the implications for each emergency. I'm sure we'll hear in due course.
Any other questions?
So we're up to water, right?
Water.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of questions around the Pinehaven Stream flood protection upgrade. So there was a council meeting that was postponed or cancelled with regard to what was on it was a lot of stuff around Pinehaven, and there was going to be a report that was coming back. So when will that report come back and to which committee? And will it cover the 3 stages, 3 through to 5, because they're on a holding and above me? Yeah. So I'm finding it, I think that that report should not only go to that regional committee, right, flood management, but I think that because it has a strong influence of what happens in our area, that I would like it to come back to one of our council committee meetings, that report, so that we have an understanding of reading it and understanding the implications and where to from here.
Mr. Chair, so we've reconstituted the steering group and are working through. We've got a project manager and we're starting to work through the process for aiming to deliver 2 reports to the
Flood management.
The flood management steering committee. I can't remember what the name is. Sorry. So one is the resetting of the program, the review that was completed, and the next stages. So it's just endorsing the project's framework in accordance with the agreement that's been signed, and a number of other more mechanical matters to get things back on track, including communication. And there'll be a paper drafted by our GW colleagues to talk about the implications of modification of the FMP to deliver the outcomes, and what changes need to happen there. I can check on the process and how we can bring it through, or where it can come through this council prior to going to that committee. I don't know the mechanics of that, but I can go and check on how we can do that.
So
or respond to that.
I'm asking for a request, and I can only ask. I need one of my colleagues around the table to actually make it a recommendation that actually that report, rather than a verbal report from our 2 colleagues that sit on that, which is Councillor Hammond and His Worship the Mayor. I want more than an oral report come back. I'd actually like to see that report, because it does have an impact on our community, and it would be good to know the rationale behind any decision that is made when that report is tabled to that committee. Yeah.
We can we'll absolutely work on the mechanisms for how those reports can come through to the appropriate committee of this council. I just can't tell you what that mechanism is, and we'll check with governance and work through the process of what that might be, or what committee it might come to. I don't know.
That's okay, just as long as it comes, and that we, as elected members of this council, get the opportunity to read it and see it, and then be able to question, the recommendations.
So we'll go away and figure out what that mechanism is and come back and,
So, thank you.
That's a question on waste minimisation.
Yes, I have with, that.
So, and forgive me if you use my phone on it, guide. For 25, so 26A, or it should be 25.
Yes, correct.
The establishing waste minimisation grants, council have waste levy budget available to support these local initiatives that contribute to our waste reduction goals. We're exploring options to set up a grant. This is news to me. As my understanding, we're using most of that waste levy budget, or will be, for the helping fund the recycling bins. How much is going to be left for this grant, and will we be taking, will we need to top up? Well, every dollar out of that levy granted to someone else is less that we can use. So what happens there?
Through Mr. Chair, and so Ross can answer that potentially, or I've got a
The chair, so you're on about financials this year or next?
Well, so maybe just tell me a bit more about these grants, the ones that are.
So at the moment, councillor, that we're looking at the actions out of the Upper Hutt City Council, specific actions out of the regional waste minimisation plan. This is one of the actions, and we're investigating. There is a substantial amount of funding sitting in the waste minimisation from the waste levy, over and above that that's allocated for the towards the purchase of the recycle bins, should that be the pathway that we end up going down.
And we can't use that for the recycling station. at the moment.
A portion of that is assigned to the recycling station and used for the pickup and disposal of and paying the contractor for that site.
And so ongoing, we will have that waste levy fund available. So we could, if when we're out for consultation to do curbside, we could have kept the recycling station open. If we're going to have all this extra money that we're pushing out to others, why couldn't we use it to fund our own operations first?
Sorry, councillor, I don't quite understand the question. Are you asking why we?
I'm just wondering why we're doing grant. We've clearly changed direction away from grants and all other activities. And now we're setting up a new grant to dish out waste levy budget that is available to council to spend for others to spend instead.
Through the chair. Previous grant applications were sub $30,000 annual budget, and where the recycling station is tenfold.
Yeah, I know, and that's why every dollar counts. And so I'm wondering why we're dishing it out. I just haven't seen. Okay, I'll wait to hear more about it, but I'm hesitant. So we can move on.
Can I comment and help, because I sit on the regional waste? I just thought I'd help you out here. So we have a regional plan which we feed into, and then we have a subset of that as council have agreed to. There are, I think, about 25 or 27 points within that subsection that we have agreed that we will deliver over a 6-year period. We're now coming into our second year. One of those is around applying for not applying, allowing people to do grants that meet that expectation that we've got. There isn't a specific amount of money, I believe, that is around that grant, which I think it would be good for us to have an understanding of how much that is. But there is money there for education, enviro schools. There's a whole host, and maybe the next time that we come to this, that we actually have a link to our subset of KPIs that we've agreed to would be really good for the rest of the council.
Through the chair, I accept we've been a bit lax on reporting in that space. Mel started a couple of weeks, a month ago now, and is getting very hot on that, and we'll be able to report that.
Yeah, and it's just giving the councils, because it did come to us and we did agree that those were the points that we would support and do. And some of them was around education, and some of it can be used for, because we had a person working at the Park Street educating people on how to move, and then that person decided that they would leave. And I know that we had a freeze, I think, on employing staff, but yeah.
So through the chair, priority right now is Mel is going hard on the Composting New Zealand month, May. Got a bunch of process in place for educational material and events that to promote that.
I think through this year as well, the next City Services Committee will have a list of those projects for it, saying these are the 26 projects, here's the prioritisation, here's the...
And where they are.
The reason why it's taking a little while is because we haven't had anyone in that space to do that work.
So have we already gone out to invite people to apply for these grants?
They're working through getting those grants and looking at the program for getting that done. So that's on that list of 26 odd council endorsed projects.
26 projects.
So we're working through the ones that we can deliver with the funding we have available.
When you said projects, I thought you meant projects that were receiving a grant. So
No. Sorry.
It's the language side of the council.
Any other questions? Other questions? We'll move on to compliance services. Right. Just got one. Just on page 43. Plans. 43. Yeah. Just a bit of an anomaly, or just on the activity of dogs, number of infringement notices in November, where there've been sort of like 7, 8, 9, 4, 3, 4, 2, and then it goes up to 231 out of the blue. What's that? Is that something?
Yeah, through you, Chair. So
It's an enforcement tool we've used as part of our registration process. So registering the dog is a requirement yearly for every dog owner, and we enforce in May, which is due in the 2nd of August. And then from there we have a penalty run that goes up to October. And then from there was a lot of resource in trying to get the leftover non-registered owners, and rather than utilising resource going out on the field, we've utilised the enforcement tool of infringement, because once the year registration period's done, that registration is cleared. So we need to be able to do something to encourage registration of the dog for that year.
So these are all like penalty ones, are they? So
There'll be some of them that are for the dogs not being in control, you know. So some infringements come outside of the outcome of an attack or dog running loose. But the reason why it's so much higher is because we've chosen to infringe in November the leftover people that haven't registered the dog.
so if they don't pay, do you send out another one, or what's this in December we're none? So
if they don't pay, then it then goes, because it's an infringement, it goes to the Ministry of Justice, and it gets collected through that. So it's a tool that obviously we don't want to use. That's why we start our registration so early, and we try and be, you know, there's definitely a softer approach from May till October. But I know in the past there was a lot of
it's
site.
November, and then time where there will always be a high percentage. Okay. Right. Councillor Kerry?
And attest to the softer approach. Being late to pay your dog registration last year. They're pretty good at their reminders.
It seemed cheaper than sending people out.
It's cheaper than an infringement.
Questions? And so
So just a question around animal management. So, you know, with all the training and everything that goes into REMU and emergency response times and things like that, have we put any thought into how we manage animals, in particular dogs, in that space?
So there is a good lot of training that our officers are required to do through, you know, they're working with our emergency management person doing courses, but also they work with other areas like Hobart SPCA, where they often do things. I know that they went out on site and did a big activity of how to build cages quickly so that we could be able to store the animals safely and keep them confined. And then they're involved in a lot of things, but I can give you a bit more detail of what that looks like in the next report if you want.
That would be really, really nice. I know I don't sit on this committee, but I do read the papers.
Yeah.
any other questions? Emergency management?
Building control.
Building control, sorry, that's a bond. Building control section, building control. Questions?
No, not on building control.
And source consents and compliance?
So, sorry. Under resource consent and compliance, we've been told that a number of times the reason why we're behind in meeting some of our targets for resource consent is around the consenting that is required from Wellington Water. Now, we've heard from Wellington Water that they've actually applied and increased their staffing numbers, right, so that we should be up to date with that. But I've heard from a few in the community saying that Wellington Water is still holding up their consent. Is that, where are we at with that?
Yeah, through new chair. Yes, so whilst our timeframes have improved in terms of the statutory clock, in terms of processing,
I suspect what you're hearing in the community is more around how long it takes them to possibly complete their assessments on engineering approvals or the subdivision certification, which requires site visits. I guess it's the easiest target in terms of developers looking at who's potentially causing delays. It's hard to justify because it is a case-by-case situation. Like there is a lot, and the other feedback you might hear is that each year there's another level of engineering difficulty to get through the process, and a lot of that comes from regional standards and changes to the water requirements. So as we go into new territory with requirements around stormwater, for example, there's more layers of assessment, so it takes longer. So 5 years ago it was a quick process, now it's a longer protracted process, and that is just the reality of it. But yeah, look, we are trying to work with Wellington Water as we would internally with our own engineers around just ensuring our processes are efficient as possible, and if there is any room for improvement that we work on those. And I also do take feedback from especially in particular the surveys and the drain layers and their frustrations. It's just an ongoing process of trying to identify if there is an issue.
Right. So the comments that I've had is that they don't have an issue with our processes, which is really great to hear. But it is that one consent or that they're hanging on and waiting for, which always seems to be around water. And to be told by Wellington Water that they had have realised that that was an issue and that they've amended it, to hear that actually some members in the community are still waiting on pieces of work from Wellington Water. So the frustration is there. There's nothing that we can do from our side to actually help move that along, because at the end of the day, we get it.
Yeah.
As in our officers get it, when in actual fact it's not us.
Through you, Chair, I'd have to really understand the particular issue again.
Can I have a conversation with you offline?
Yep, sure. We can look at that, and and that's just a case of working through that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Saying that though, they have got better.
Yes, yeah.
Compared to
So
what 12 months ago.
Yes, correct.
They were really bad, and it's a standout point. You're at the coalface, you would know if they got better.
Yes, so I guess it's probably been about a year that they've had a manager in their team, and the land development team, and so she was directly put in that role to help manage. Obviously, there's a range of councils they work for, so to manage workflows and also just workloads of the staff members, and just to escalate. So got someone to escalate matters to, and they respond very quickly. There is always peaks, so I guess 2 years ago there was a peak for all the councils. So understandably, just the same as we were struggling, they were struggling. So everyone's reduced workloads, so that has helped. So if there's a steady workload, works for us, it works for them. But yeah, we will always have issues with these peaks of work. But that's just the reality of, you can't necessarily resource for a potential peak of work, you just resource for average workload.
Any other questions?
Oh, sorry, are we moving on to emergency management yet?
Unless there's no more questions, I take it emergency management.
I just had a question about the static tanks. So it's point 56. The static tanks that are being put in for community resilience with water. I just wondered, because it doesn't actually say how many tanks and where they're going to be located and what size they are.
Really, Mr. Chair, no, I'd have to go. Most of them were just in between one emergency management officer moving along and Rosie coming back really next week. So I'd have to go and get the info. I can't answer it.
Okay, thank you.
Did you ask what size?
Councillor Swales.
So 57, which is councillors reviewing existing community infrastructure resilient assets to have assurance they are fit for their intended purpose. This is something that Wellington Water delegated to do, looking at 2 specific areas, but surely we should be having an understanding of the community infrastructure resilience over our whole city and not just for water.
For you, Mr. Chair, those that is unclear reading that. So those community infrastructure resilience are the water containers,
right,
that are located in various spots around the city. I believe they were put in after Kaikoura protection.
Yeah.
And in our question back to Wellington Water was, could you please actually run them so we can see them operating? Rather than just checking that they're still there.
Okay.
So we're just working through that. So it's specific for those pieces of infrastructure. There are other resilience work that's happened across other portions of the network and in all networks.
And so those reports from a totality part of resilience of our community, right, that will come back to us so that we've got an overview of how resilient our community is, not just water tanks, because reading this, it's community infrastructure resilience, but yes, it's about water. I'm saying, are we going to do it with all our other assets to make sure where we sit with regard to resilience?
Through Mr. Chair, so that CIR are the CIR containers, that's what they're called. Community infrastructure resilience are those specific things in terms of the overall resilience of the community to a natural disaster. That's certainly something that when Rosie's back in the seat early next week, we can talk to her about bringing information or putting some more information in these reports around that. And it's in a all-rounded form.
So those tanks inside those containers are pumps, are they electric pump or petrol pumps?
Yeah, it's my understanding of I haven't been in one.
I can talk.
Okay.
Broadly, the community infrastructure resilience program, as I understood it, was about trying to have clear information out to the community as to what they could expect after a disaster when it happened and how long things would take to be up and running. The only thing in that they could actually control was the assets that we own to get them back online. So ideally, it'd be across power and telco and all those things you'd know. So for water, these are like containers, shipping containers that are sitting around the city near enough to a source of water that they could abstract water, treat it, and then people could come. And it was like after 7 or 8 days post an event, everyone in the community was able to get 20 litres per person per day of water and take that away. That's what that's about.
So those pumps, you're saying, should be.
So through the chair, we've just gone back to Wellington Water to say, can you just confirm you're actually testing them? Because we've been to 1 or 2 and gone, wonder if this actually works. And we've just gone back and asked the question.
So through the chair, I
I've been waiting for a while, Chair.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry. Thank you. You look like one of the we've bought 3 tanks. And it said they're going to test 2 of them there, and the third one sits behind the prison gates. Is that going to be tested as well? And is it going to stay in that location?
Through this chair, there's a conversation going on with the prison about that tank and what about that container. I understand what happens with that.
Yep.
So Steve's initiated that. So that's as much as I know.
That's cool. Thank you.
So that's one.
I appreciate everything that my colleague has said with regard to water, but the subtitle is emergency management, not just specifically to water. And my question was not just directed at water, it was resilience of our community. So thank you, Councillor Keary, for explaining the water situation. Yeah, but the emergency one, my question was, how resilient are we as a community?
New question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Through Ms. Chair, so Rosie's back, our emergency management officer is back next week, and can certainly talk to her about bringing back some information about the resilience of the community and more details around those things, I would just be communicating the little bits that I know.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Other questions? Right, well, move to what we received. Councillor Cherry, second, all in favour?
Aye.
Pass. Right, that's the end of our meeting. Thank you.